We have a political analyst and a commentator for Young Voices, David McGarry. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Now, we talked earlier about everything that had happened in the House. And yesterday we were talking, we had a pretty lengthy conversation about how the censure worked out or didn't work out, and how there were over 20 Republicans that joined Democrats in not deciding to censure
Rashida Tlaib, yeah.
And it's so strange. What's your take on this?
I think there's a lot of different directions to go with this one, but one thing I will point out in this context is that we really have to understand that writing legislation effectively, or even writing censure motions effectively and accurately, is really important, because one of the reasons why Green lost some votes is because she got a little bit out over her skis on some factual claims, notably the claim of insurrection. So I think one thing that we need to really look for as voters and our lawmakers is just basic confidence that they're going to stick to the facts, and they're going to really write down to earth, plausible, and when it comes to legislation, effective, different pieces of legislation that they're going to bring to votes.
So what was missing then in this censure resolution against Rashida Tlaib? And I know that, it might be sort of, okay, well, if we have to vote for this, then we have to vote for censure of Marjorie Taylor Greene, based on how the wording is. What was in this that caused even our own Iowa Congresswoman Marinette Miller-Meeks to vote against this, to kill this censure?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, there were some slightly dubious factual claims that made their way into this motion. Chip Roy, for one, pointed to the claim that Rep. Tlaib had engaged in insurrection, which I think we all know that she didn't, however reprehensible her statements may otherwise be. We have to look at the Congress that we have, right? We have a very narrowly divided House. We have some razor thin margins, and especially when you're in that environment, doing politics well and being a responsible legislator really matters more than in maybe another situation in which there could be a 50-seat lead for one party or the other.
Well, as a commentator with Young Voices and as a political analyst, you talk with your cohorts there a lot about these kind of stalemates that we're in. What are young political activists saying, or what do you think can be done in Congress to try to break some of these stalemates?
Well, one thing I think that a lot of people, a lot of younger folks are looking for is a paradigm shift when it comes to governing. I mean, we just had a weeks-long kerfuffle over who was going to succeed McCarthy as the speaker. We ended up getting Mike Johnson. There's a lot of people who are very excited about that, and I think that a lot of young people who are worried about the direction that Washington has taken, the amount of spending, the amount of debt that we now have, want Congress to get down to the brass tacks of actually making real, meaningful fiscal reforms. We saw that the House just passed the legislative appropriations bill. That's a good start. Now they just need to keep going with it. We need to get back to regular order. We need to get away from the omnibuses and really start governing again in the way that that statute and the Constitution intended Congress to govern.
So, David, is it your opinion then that they should probably waste less time trying to do a censure? Because it's my understanding that a censure really is just a slap on the hand and a shake of the finger, like just don't do that again, and stay more focused on the business at hand.
I think in this context, that's correct. Again, I want to completely disassociate myself, and I want to completely condemn pretty much anything that Rep. Tlaib has said, honestly, about most issues. But
obviously, yes, right. Right.
For
right.
sure.
Well, that's just it. You sometimes you react viscerally to something. We do that all the time in our personal lives, but when it comes down to the business of running our government, some of these visceral reactions end up backfiring as far as what you're hoping to achieve. And I think in Iowa in particular, and I hope you get a chance to come to Iowa if you do around caucus time, because Iowans tend to be pretty common sense about this stuff. Yeah, they definitely may not agree with what Rashida Tlaib had to say, in her support of Hamas and against Israel. However, you're not going to solve any kind of problems by throwing some silly censure at her that isn't going to stick, that then the opponents could use to censure in the same way their opponents, right?
Well, that's entirely correct, and you actually hit on something that's very, very important, and that's the concept of when we're doing politics and when we're interacting with each other in the public sphere, we have to get away from some of the baser tendencies of our human nature, some of the faster reactions, the emotional responses. These are all things that we have to deal with in our personal lives, and more, especially as we've seen representatives and members of the media and others engage on social media. We've seen a tendency towards going towards the quickest, most outrageous reaction, which really does no one any good, and it feels great for about 5 minutes, but after the sugar highway wears off, you realize that you haven't gotten anything done, and you've just angered a lot of people for no discernible benefit.
I don't know about you, Amy. This is super great to hear from Young Voices, young political guy. I love this.
Sure.
Okay. Well, David, thank you for your time today. David McGarry, commentator, Young Voices. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks, David.
It is 6:16 on the Max and Amy show. You know, we're talking about young people earlier with the FFA convention, and David and Bob over there getting interviews, and Lydia and the folks, from the farm department. And you just feel good about some of these young people who are just so smart and way ahead of their years from a wisdom standpoint, right?
They're great leaders.